We have primitive objects ready to go for all the main components of the project. But the first and most important element we should focus on is the player. So by the end of this lesson, your core player movement will be functional. Now, depending on the type of project you're making, the player controls may be completely different. You might be able to move all around the screen, jump up and down, maybe just rotate left and right. Whatever the core player control is, it needs to get done first. But after you've programmed where the player can move, you also have to program where they cannot move. For example, if your player can move all around the screen, they cannot be able to leave the screen. If the player can jump up and down, they cannot be able to jump endlessly. That's the goal here. Program how your player can move, and also how they cannot. So to make all that happen, I'll see you in Unity. As a way to drive. So we know all of our different enemies, and we have our power-up, and we have our player, but we'll need to be able to control this player. So we'll need a script to control that behavior. So on our assets folder in our project window, we're going to right-click, create a new folder, and it'll be called scripts. Now so we'll create a new, so I'm just going to click to apply those forces onto my player. So that's useful for what I'm trying to do. But if your game isn't using physics, don't use a rigid body, you don't need to. If you're not trying to do some physical collisions or anything like that. Now we'll open up our player controller script. Now before we go into writing any of the code to control our player, one of the things that we should consider is how we actually want our player to move. So in our first prototype, we made it so our player had full control over their movement. So they could move forwards, they could move backwards, they could move left, they could move right, they could drive down the road. In challenge 1, we had a plane that was already moving, but you could control that movement using the arrow keys. In our second prototype, we made it so we could move the player side to side. They were trapped inside of this invisible box, and they could also throw projectiles from the player. In our second challenge, our player didn't actually move at all, but we could use those projectiles as a way to drive our game. In our third prototype, we had the background moving, like an endlessly scrolling game, I imagine that control over the direct folder, create a to see. So now that we know how we want our player to move, we need to actually make our player move. Our design document here is a great reference to have to understand what we need to do to move. So in my case, I have the arrow keys that I'm going to use. So I'm going to need some input. I'm not using spacebar or anything, so I don't need to do key codes or key presses. So all I'm doing is creating basic movement. So what I'm going to do first is I know that I'm going to use not a big problem. Now, because I'm actually using my about going to need player name speed variable. In my case, I'm using a rigid body to the thing around and left and used our horizontal input to control it. Make sure you look at your design document to see what kind of input you'll need, so that way you can figure out what you're going to program if you need key press. So we've added in our player movement. So you can see our ball rolls all around, and then I actually drove it straight off of the plane. So that's unfortunate, but that's okay. So we'll need to limit a lot of this for our gameplay. So one of the first things that I noticed was when I that you have, I think I'm probably going to replace this ball with an animal or something like that. So I do need to do one for forwards or backwards. So I'm going to freeze the rotation. So that way I can still move. Kind of see wall or something like that, and it's going through the ground. So let me bring that up a bit like there. Let me just focus. Probably bring it up a little bit more like that. Rename my character over and then they run into the wall, so that's good. That's exactly what I wanted to create some invisible into a wall. So I'm going to your jump you have. If I left click and drag it, it onto my walls. There you go. Cool. So I have purple walls, so I can see those. Axis, so that I can't move the player past the top or the bottom of their view. So I'm actually going to make another private variable for that. How to do that exactly, so I can't move the player past the top or the bottom of their view. Down to about wall. Second cube, I'll my player value on the Z becomes greater than that because they're going up or down. So if it ever becomes less than the negative Z bound, then we actually just reset that position to be a new vector. We keep it inside our negative Z bound. Otherwise, if our position So everything is roaming freely. So I added the code. Going to create things in here on a backup method here is a lot more readable. So let's just test. I just call those methods. So game objects method. So I clear. I could add a comment here that's like this is the bottom of the screen. Our game. So we can move freely. Progress to see what we were trying to do. With that, I'll see you in the next lab.